19 Black R&B legends who had the dirtiest private lives. A little boy once stood before a portrait of his father, a world-famous R&B legend, and asked his mother quietly, "Do you love me?" It was a heartbreaking question, one that echoed through a life where the spotlight never exposed the pain it created. Behind the glitter and applause were stories too dark for the stage. One artist was caught in an affair with his best friend's late wife's stepchild. Another assaulted a fan in the studio, then turned that twisted act into a song the world sang along to. And one man, dressed in white, singing about love, secretly recorded women in the most private moments of their lives. What you're about to hear isn't meant to condemn, but to reveal a truth few dare to face. Fame can be the most beautiful disguise for darkness. Behind every standing ovation lies a secret no one was meant to see. So if you're brave enough to stare into the dark side of fame, stay until the end, because the most shocking stories are often hidden behind the loudest applause. Millie Jackson. Millie Jackson, the queen of the bedroom, the secret file no one dared to open. She was the woman who made grown men lower their eyes on stage. But behind the explicit lyrics and the wild laughter was a hidden chapter the music industry tried to erase. Millie Jackson didn't just sing, she unleashed. Her microphone was a weapon, and her voice a confession. When the world still blushed at the word sex, Millie kicked the door open and said, "I'm going to say everything women were told to keep quiet about." But few knew that in 1978, her record label nearly tore up her contract after discovering tapes of real, unedited phone calls with her lovers, turned into raw musical confessions. One studio engineer later admitted, "It wasn't singing, it was a release. It was so real, it made me shudder." Her album Still Caught Up wasn't just about adultery. It was her own testimony. A portrait of a woman trapped between desire and control, love and power. But that honesty came at a price. Fans threatened her life. One letter read, "If you ever talk about animal sex again, I'll make sure you never speak on stage again." In 1985, while on tour in Dallas, Millie vanished for 2 days. The press said exhaustion. Insiders said something darker. An ex-lover, enraged over a song that exposed him, had locked her in a hotel room. No police, no headlines, just silence. And the next night, she was back on stage, smiling as if nothing had happened. Her love life was messier than her music. She once fell for a married producer who leaked her private demo as revenge. Yet through it all, she refused to break. "I didn't lose faith in men," she later said. "I lost faith in the industry. They wanted me to be sexy, but decent. But I'm not Madonna. I'm a country girl who swears." It wasn't until decades later, when female rappers began to be praised for their sexual honesty, that the world finally looked back and whispered her name again. Millie Jackson, the godmother of rebellion. But by then, she was living quietly in a small Atlanta apartment, still receiving hate mail accusing her of destroying black culture. She was the first woman to speak her truth, sing her truth, and live her truth, then be punished for it. And as Millie once said, "I don't need to be loved. I just need to be remembered as the one who never shut up." David Ruffin. David Ruffin, Motown's angel of deception, the voice heaven couldn't save. They called him a Motown legend, the man whose velvet voice turned My Girl into an anthem of love, and whose smile made millions of women swoon. But behind that charming grin was a man tormented by demons no spotlight could hide. Few knew the dark truth behind his romance with Tammy Terrell, the radiant young star who once sang beside Marvin Gaye. Her medical files remain sealed to this day, but whispers from Motown's Golden Hall suggest her death was far from natural. Some say David Ruffin's love didn't just break hearts, it broke bones. On stage, he was pure magic, the pompadour hair, the angelic tenor, the hypnotic gaze. But off stage, he vanished into the night, slipping into limousines with women who were never seen again. I watched David snort a line backstage before stepping under the lights, one drummer recalled. Then he sang like nothing happened. Only his eyes gave him away. They were haunted. Tammy's end came in tragedy. Found in her bathroom, her head struck against the sink. She never named her abuser publicly, but a close friend remembered her final whisper: "If I die, don't let David near me." At her funeral, Ruffin stormed the stage and shouted, "I'll sing for her. I'm the one she loved." Her family had him thrown out of the church. When the Temptations expelled him for his ego and erratic behavior, David began his long fall from grace. Late at night, he'd call old friends, sob incoherently, then hang up. Once, after shattering a mirror, he stared at his reflection and muttered, "I see the devil in my eyes." By 1991, his brilliance had dimmed to tragedy. Found lifeless in a Philadelphia motel, he'd been dumped at a hospital door by an unknown man who drove away without a word. The autopsy revealed a deadly dose of amphetamines. In his pocket was no cash, only a crumpled photo of him and Tammy, scrawled with the words, "I should have changed." The press called his death predictable, but to those who truly loved his voice, it was heartbreaking. One fan wrote, "David Ruffin didn't need forgiveness. He needed saving." Motown may try to bury its darkest secrets, but the truth lingers. Behind the silky harmonies lies the agony of a man who could make the world fall in love, but never learned how to love himself. Ike Turner. Ike Turner, the father of rock and roll, or the devil in Tina Turner's story. Behind the music that electrified America was a man whose private life was far darker than the sound he created. Internal police reports from his arrests in 1974 and 1989 exposed a chilling duality. The same man who gave the world Rocket 88, hailed as the first rock and roll song, also left scars on women that would never heal. In 1960, he met a young woman named Anna Mae Bullock. The world would later know her as Tina Turner. For 16 years, she was his voice, his partner, his possession, and his victim. Emergency room records tell the story his fame tried to hide. Broken jaws, bruises, and quiet excuses. "I fell down the stairs," Tina whispered to a nurse in 1971, her trembling hands betraying the truth. A confidential Motown memo later revealed that Ike demanded sex after every performance, no matter her condition. Once, when she was feverish and weak, he shattered hotel furniture and screamed, "You can be sick with the world, but you can't be sick with me." A bandmate remembered hearing her sob through the walls, but said nothing. "We needed the money," he confessed years later. When Tina finally escaped in 1976, with nothing but a few cents in her pocket, his empire collapsed. Drugs consumed him. The arrests piled up. Assault, weapons, trafficking. The FBI watched, but proof slipped away. In 1989, he attacked another young singer under his control. She refused to testify. The case vanished like so many of his victims' voices. Ike Turner died of a drug overdose in 2007. The headlines were brief, the mourning non-existent. Tina did not attend his funeral. "I forgave him," she said, "but forgiveness doesn't mean going back." After his death, a tape was discovered. Ike sat at a piano, mumbling to himself between chords, "I invented rock and roll, but I didn't invent love." They say genius and monster often live in the same body. But the real tragedy isn't just the monster. It's the silence of those who saw him and said nothing. Bobby Womack. Bobby Womack, the man cursed by his own friend's blood. Even the hardest souls flinch at his story. Bobby wasn't just an R&B legend. He was a man who won every battle in music, but lost the war within himself. Born in Cleveland in 1944, he embodied everything the genre stood for: passion, pain, and soul. He started out with the Valentinos, mentored and embraced by Marvin Gaye like a brother. But when Marvin was gunned down in 1984, Bobby made a choice that would haunt him forever. Just months after the funeral, he married Anna Gordy, Marvin's ex-wife. The music world froze in disbelief. People whispered that Bobby hadn't even finished wiping away his tears before lying in his friend's bed. But the scandal didn't stop there. Soon after, Bobby began an affair with Anna's stepdaughter, Marvin's own daughter. One night, she discovered that Bobby had secretly kept her intimate photos. Enraged, she told her mother. A violent confrontation erupted. Bobby fled the apartment, leaving behind a recorded apology that no one has ever fully heard. The backlash was brutal. Radio stations banned his songs. Fans turned their backs. For years, Bobby Womack became a ghost in the very industry he helped build. Haunted and paranoid, he drowned himself in drugs and hallucinations. Witnesses recalled him running into the streets screaming, "I am the devil, but I don't want to die like the devil." He disappeared into rehab and silence. When he finally returned in the early 2000s, he released The Bravest Man in the Universe, a raw confession wrapped in melody, as if trying to cleanse his sins through sound. In 2014, his heart finally gave out. The media barely noticed, but his old fans never forgot. They remember a man who sinned deeply, yet sang the truth so painfully it burned. No one knows exactly where he's buried, as if fate itself erased him from the map. But somewhere, between rhythm and regret, Bobby Womack still lives, warning us that not everyone can escape the darkness they create. Rick James. Rick James, the sexiest monster R&B ever created. He once declared, "My body is the temple of sensuality." But behind those tinted sunglasses and swaggering confidence was a hollow soul, one that devoured everything around him, including other people's lives. Rick James didn't need an introduction. The man behind Super Freak turned America into a dance floor. The drums wild, the funk electric, the energy unstoppable. But when the spotlight faded, Rick didn't go home. He disappeared into smoky backrooms, where naked bodies swayed and white powder was passed around like sugar. Then came 1991, the scandal that burned through his legacy. A young woman testified that Rick and his girlfriend had kidnapped her, kept her captive for 3 days, forced drugs into her system, and tortured her with half-burned cigarettes, all while laughing and filming. Her memories were hazy, but the bruises and photographs told the story. Convicted and sentenced in 1994, Rick faced prison not with tears, but with arrogance. A guard later said he didn't cry. He just asked if he could bring his guitar. Released in 1996, Rick still called himself Super Freak. "I'm not a hero," he said. "I'm a symbol of pleasure." But the applause was gone. MTV banned his videos, record labels abandoned him, and the women who once screamed his name now whispered it in fear. In 2004, Rick James died of a heart attack, his body filled with methamphetamine, Valium, and painkillers. In a drawer beside his bed lay an unsent letter to his daughter. It read, "If you hear what they say about me, believe at least half of it. I only regret not keeping the other half." No one could ever wash the blood off Rick James' hands. But if his story saves even one soul before it's too late, maybe, just maybe, his darkness will have served a purpose. Jackie Wilson. Jackie Wilson, the man who set the stage on fire and lived in the shadows. They called him Mr. Excitement. On stage, Jackie Wilson could make women scream, faint, and fall in love all at once. But behind those bright lights was a man running from more than fame. He was running from himself. Jackie had a voice so powerful it could raise the dead, and moves so wild they made Elvis look tame. He was born to perform, yet cursed by the chaos he carried. He fathered at least 10 children with more than 7 women, most of whom never saw a single dime of support. Some kids grew up not even knowing his name, only hearing whispers that their father was a legend. In 1961, that legend took a dark turn. Jackie was accused of assaulting a model after an after-show party. Witnesses said she was crying and bruised. Her mother told her, "Don't ruin your future over a famous man." The case quietly disappeared. So did the truth, buried under an undisclosed payout. Jackie kept vanishing too. One day he was seen in Chicago holding hands with a teenage girl. A month later, rumors spread that he was engaged to his co-star's ex-wife. Everyone in the industry knew his demons, but no one dared to speak. Why? Because Jackie sold tickets. He could make black and white audiences rise to their feet, together, in an era when that was almost impossible. Then came a night that silenced him forever. In 1975, while singing Lonely Teardrops, Jackie collapsed on stage, struck by a massive stroke. He fell into a coma that lasted 9 long years. Motionless, voiceless, forgotten. His children fought over what little was left of his estate. One said, "He was my father, but I only knew his voice through the tapes." Jackie Wilson died in 1984. The funeral was small. The papers printed a few lines. No one mentioned the lawsuits. No one spoke of the nameless children. But the songs remain, Higher and Higher, Lonely Teardrops, Reet Petite, songs that made the world believe in love, even when the man who sang them couldn't find it for himself. Because sometimes, when the spotlight fades, what's left behind isn't fame or glory, it's a shadow. And inside that shadow is a soul, still searching for a way out. Sylvester, the queen of disco who lived in a man's body. They called him Aretha Franklin in a wedding dress, not for his voice, but for his courage. In the 1970s, when being openly gay and black could cost you your life, Sylvester stepped onto the stage in sequins, wigs, and lashes, daring the world to see him exactly as he was. Born in 1947 in Watts, California, Sylvester became the first openly gay black artist to sing about same-sex love without disguise or apology. His hit, "You Make Me Feel Mighty Real," wasn't just a song. It was a declaration, an anthem for millions forced into silence. But while he gave a voice to the voiceless, his own community often turned its back on him. In a leaked 1979 radio meeting, one DJ was caught saying, "We can't play people like that. Parents will pull their kids off the air." Some musicians refused to share stage with him, afraid of being labeled gay. During one show in Houston, the crowd hurled bottles and shoes at him. Blood streamed down his face. Yet Sylvester didn't run. He stood tall, wiped the blood from his forehead, and sang through the chaos. "I am what I am." That night, the underground world found its hero. But fame came with cruelty. In 1984, a former lover betrayed him, selling private recordings to a porn magazine, a scandal that nearly destroyed his career. He called it a wound that will never heal. Friends disappeared, shows were canceled, and he was forced to perform in tiny bars under fake names just to survive. By 1988, AIDS claimed his life at just 41 years old. There were no red carpets, no Hollywood tributes, just a quiet headline: "Disco singer Sylvester dies." Yet history refused to forget him. In the years that followed, Sylvester became something greater than fame. He became a symbol, a reminder that authenticity often comes with a price. He left behind a voice like no other, and a haunting question that still echoes today. Why hide your true self just to earn someone else's applause? Billy Preston, the keyboard genius trapped behind locked doors. If music truly is the language of the soul, then Billy Preston was the translator between heaven and earth. His fingers spoke to angels. His melodies danced with fire. Yet behind that divine sound was a man chained by silence, fear, and secrets buried too deep for daylight. Born in 1946, Billy was once hailed as the fifth Beatle, the only black musician ever signed by the legendary band. On stage, he was a spirit unleashed, fusing funk with the sacred pulse of pop and soul. But off stage, he lived like a haunted man, carrying ghosts that refused to rest. In 1992, the world saw Billy's name in the headlines, arrested for tax fraud. But that was just the beginning. Inside the investigation, whispers grew darker. Hidden parties, missing tapes, testimonies that vanished before they could speak. A retired FBI agent once hinted, "We had a file on someone involved in forced homosexual acts." Witnesses were too afraid to come forward. It could have been Billy. No charges, no proof, just silence. And silence in Hollywood is its own kind of death. Tours were canceled. Contracts disappeared. Friends stopped calling. One producer recalled a midnight phone call, Billy's voice trembling on the other end. "Why did they drop me?" By the time he passed away in 2006, after years battling kidney disease, Billy's light had dimmed, but not his music. At his funeral, stars gathered, yet no one dared to speak of the scandal. Everything wiped clean, forgotten. But then came one haunting clip. Billy, alone in an empty church, playing his guitar to no one. Eyes closed, one tear slipping down his cheek as he struck the final chord. When beauty becomes a mask for pain, the artist becomes the loneliest soul alive. Billy Preston left behind not just songs, but a riddle that music itself can't solve. James Mtoom, the rhythm master who lived in a maze of desire. James Mtoom wasn't just a musician, he was a force of nature. A man whose rhythms could make a crowd tremble, whose beats carried both ecstasy and danger. Born in 1947, Mtoom carved his name into the underground worlds of jazz, funk, and R&B throughout the 1970s and 80s. But while his music echoed through clubs and concert halls, his private life unfolded in ways few could imagine, a secret labyrinth of sex, silence, and control. He was one of the first to fuse funk with black philosophy and meditation, transforming rhythm into spiritual rebellion. Yet behind the stage lights, Mtoom built a world that blurred the line between art and obsession. Those close to him whispered about his silent rooms, private penthouses rented in every city on tour. There, only a select few were invited. Bandmates, managers, even lighting crew members were said to sign contracts promising absolute secrecy. I remember walking in after a show, recalled one singer who toured with him in 1977. Candles everywhere, drums beating softly, nobody saying a word. They just stared at me. I left because I was terrified. She wouldn't speak of that night again. Not until 2003, when Mtoom received a Lifetime Achievement Award. Then, an anonymous letter surfaced, describing in haunting detail what she had seen. The letter was never published. By the mid-1980s, Mtoom vanished from the spotlight. Some said he turned to politics and education. Others believed he simply walked away from the world. One journalist tried to find him, until a chilling phone call warned, "Leave him alone." Some things are meant to stay in the dark. When James Mtoom died in 2022, his obituary spoke only of his music. But those who once stepped into his world remember something far more complicated. A man of brilliance and shadows, love and danger. Not every artist is meant to be understood. Some are born to provoke, to love, to destroy, and finally to vanish into the very darkness they created. And as we move deeper into these stories, half tragedy, half revelation, one question lingers. Did fame create their downfall, or did our obsession push them over the edge? Donny Hathaway, the genius haunted by his own voice. They called him an R&B angel, but Donny believed he was something less than human, or perhaps something more. A psychiatrist once wrote that Donny thought the CIA was tracking him through the vibrations of his guitar strings. Born into poverty, he rose to fame with a velvet voice that could melt pain into beauty, a voice he swore he could still hear whispering to him long after the music stopped. In the late 1970s, while recording with Roberta Flack, something inside him broke. In the middle of a session, Donny suddenly screamed that the microphone was killing him, and then destroyed the studio equipment in terror. The tape still exists. There's no melody, just a chilling scream that echoes like a soul splitting in two. That was the first time I saw an artist bleed without blood, one technician later recalled. Behind closed doors, Donny's mind became a battlefield. He vanished for days, then returned home with walls covered in newspaper clippings and scribbled symbols, as if mapping some invisible conspiracy. His family stayed silent, afraid that if he were ever institutionalized, his music would die with him. On the night of January 13th, 1979, Donny Hathaway's body was found outside the Essex House Hotel in New York. The police ruled it a suicide, but a security guard claimed he saw two men leave Donny's suite just 10 minutes earlier. The case was never fully investigated. Donny left no note, only a single line written in his notebook. "I can no longer hear God." Gene Chandler. The untold story of Gene Chandler, the tuxedo gentleman, with a secret life hidden behind the glitter. He was charm and class personified, always in a crisp white tuxedo, hair slicked back, flashing that calm, knowing smile that said scandal could never touch him. But behind a velvet curtain, Gene's world wasn't as polished as his stage persona. Few fans knew that in the early 1970s, during his southern tours, Chandler came under investigation for allegedly running an underground prostitution ring, one that shockingly involved underage female fans. Record label insiders scrambled to bury the story. An internal memo even warned, "The image of the R&B gentleman must be protected at all costs." A crew member later confessed, "I saw Gene take young girls backstage. They never came out at the same time." Though Gene was never formally charged, the fallout was swift. His once promising career began to crumble. Groovy's situation flopped, his tour was canceled for logistical reasons, and the tuxedoed gentleman quietly vanished. For nearly 2 decades, he lived in the shadows of suburban Chicago. A former lover claimed he kept hidden photographs, intimate memories locked away under his bed, and paid hush money when old ghosts resurfaced. When Gene finally returned to the stage in the 1990s, he said softly, "I'm older now. I just want people to remember the music." But the world had changed, and so had his legacy. To many, Gene Chandler was no longer the Duke of Earl, but the man whose silence spoke louder than any apology he never gave. Joe Tex, the hot-blooded cowboy who challenged the king of soul for love. Joe Tex wasn't just another soul singer. He was fire wrapped in rhythm, a man of passion and pride. And unlike most, he dared to challenge James Brown himself. But the feud wasn't over fame or records. It was over a woman. She had once been Joe's sweetheart before falling for James Brown, then found her way back to Joe. But love triangles rarely end quietly. On one fateful night in Macon, Georgia, in 1963, the simmering tension exploded. James Brown showed up unannounced at Joe's show. When Joe performed "You Keep Her," a song that mocked James as a love thief, the audience laughed, but James didn't. Within minutes, chaos erupted backstage. Witnesses say Brown's men stormed in, guns blazing, shots echoing through the theater. "I thought I was in a gangster movie," one security guard recalled. Joe barely escaped that night, but his career never fully recovered. Promoters feared the drama, the danger, the scandal. Gigs disappeared. His temper worsened. He drank heavily, clashed with fans, and even got accused of staring too long at another man's girlfriend during a show. By the early 1970s, whispers tied him to Houston's extortion circles, though he was never charged. It said he paid to have his name erased from the headlines. But his image, the honest, soulful cowboy, was forever stained. When Joe Tex died of a heart attack in 1982, he left behind more than hit records. He left a legend, the story of a man who stood up to the king of soul, not for glory, but for love. And maybe that's what makes him less a villain and more a tragic hero. Al Green, a voice that once felt like a prayer, yet a body forever marked by betrayal. He made the church tremble with his angelic tones, but it wasn't on stage that his life changed. It was in a quiet Memphis home, inside a bathtub. On a chilling night in 1974, his girlfriend, Mary Woodson, entered without a word, carrying a pot of boiling water. She poured it over him as he bathed, searing his skin and soul. Moments later, she went to the bedroom and took her own life. Police called it one of the darkest emotional tragedies in R&B history. Later reports revealed Mary had discovered AL's secret affairs, with 3 different women, one from New Orleans. The scandal left the public stunned. Al turned to the only place he could find refuge, the church. But even there, the past followed him. Several former lovers filed lawsuits, accusing him of emotional cruelty. "I loved him with my heart," one woman wrote. "He loved me with his words." Today, Al Green still sings gospel with that same heavenly voice, but behind every note lies the echo of pain. The image of the man burned by love remains one of the most haunting scars in soul music history. Ray Charles, the blind king who saw everything but himself. Though darkness followed him from birth, his vision went far beyond the eyes. He could feel every rhythm, every heartbeat, and, as some say, every woman who crossed his path. Ray fathered at least 12 children with 9 different women, though insiders whisper the real number was much higher. Behind the velvet voice and timeless hits was a man consumed by desire and demons. During the 1950s through the 1970s, he battled a fierce drug addiction while touring with a group of young dancers who called him Daddy. One tour manager was even fired after refusing to deliver an underage girl to Ray's hotel room, a scandal that was quietly buried by local press and covered up by RCA Records. In 1961, Ray was arrested when police found heroin hidden inside a cassette tape case in his suitcase. A skilled lawyer saved him from prison, but the FBI labeled him a moral threat to society. When Ray Charles died in 2004, his legacy was as complicated as his genius. His children fought bitterly over his estate, even demanding DNA tests. He left behind a treasure of music that changed the world, and a haunting question that still lingers. How could a man who couldn't see light so clearly see every sin in the dark? Redd Foxx, the king of comedy who lived a tragedy offstage. He made America roar with laughter, but behind those jokes was a man drowning in debt, heartbreak, and self-destruction. Off camera, Foxx was no warm-hearted Sanford. He was a reckless gambler, a serial womanizer, and a man whose charm often left others broke. His life was a carousel of unpaid bills, Vegas brothels, and broken promises. By 1989, his empire came crashing down. The IRS stormed onto a film set and seized everything he owned, right before his castmates' eyes. But what shattered his public image most wasn't the money. It was the cruelty. When his ex-wife, dying from heart disease, called begging for help, Foxx coldly told his assistant, "Tell her I'm on tour." He once gambled away his wedding ring, joking to his girlfriend that it was a lucky charm. But luck had long left him. By the early 90s, the legendary comedian was performing in cheap casinos, chasing applause that no longer came. In 1991, while filming The Royal Family, Redd Foxx suddenly collapsed. The crew laughed, thinking it was part of his act. But this time, the joke was cruelly real. The man who made millions laugh died broke, betrayed by the same comedy that made him famous. In the end, America's funniest man left the stage with one last, painful punchline, a laugh no one returned. Chuck Berry, the father of rock and roll and the dark secret behind the music. Chuck Berry didn't just play rock and roll, he invented it. His guitar riffs became the heartbeat of a generation, his swagger the blueprint for every star who followed. But behind the rhythm of Johnny B. Good was a secret door leading to a scandal that would forever tarnish his legend. In 1990, Missouri police raided one of Berry's restaurants. What they discovered shocked the world. Dozens of hidden cameras secretly recording women and girls in the restroom. When questioned, Berry claimed the cameras were to protect his property from drug dealers. But the tapes told a darker truth. We suspected something, one former employee later revealed, but no one dared to confront him. The fallout was explosive. Multiple women filed a class action lawsuit, many settling out of court for over $1 million. But money couldn't buy back what was lost, his reputation. Behind the curtain, fans whispered a new name for the rock pioneer, Johnny B. Pervert. In his final years, Berry withdrew from the spotlight. No interviews, no confessions, no apologies. When he died in 2017, headlines praised the genius who gave birth to rock and roll, but few dared to mention the scandal that haunted his legacy. History remembers the music, but sometimes the silence between the notes tells the darkest story of all. Marvin Gaye, the angel of love swallowed by his own desires. He was the man whose velvet voice made millions believe in romance, whose songs turned heartbreak into poetry. Yet behind the music, Marvin was haunted by demons that no melody could silence. In his private diary, he once confessed, "I don't believe in love. I only believe in possession." He married Anna Gordy, sister of Motown's founder, a woman 17 years older who helped shape his rise. But when that union crumbled, Marvin spiraled into obsession, falling for 17-year-old Janice Hunter. Friends said Janice never realized she was part of a dark psychological game, a muse trapped in a man's inner war. In the studio, Marvin made her sing songs about betrayal, forcing her to relive the pain he caused. Those close to him spoke of his dangerous appetites, a man consumed by lust and control. He secretly filmed lovers, made them watch the tapes as punishment, and wrote that he felt aroused by the pain he inflicted. His music spoke of love, but his soul wrestled with guilt, shame, and addiction. By the early 80s, broken and disillusioned, Marvin returned to his parents' home, the place where his faith and fear first collided. On April 1st, 1984, that collision became fatal. His father, enraged by his son's sinful ways, shot him dead the day before his 45th birthday. The heart of soul music stopped beating in the very house that once gave it life. Brilliant, yet tormented, Marvin Gaye proved that even those who sing of light cannot always escape the shadows they create. James Brown, the godfather of soul, a man who ruled the stage with rhythm and fire, and often ruled his world with an iron fist. His voice made the world move, his beats shook generations. But behind the spotlight, some women lived in fear of the same man who made millions dance. Over the years, James was arrested more than 10 times for assaulting his wife, threatening girlfriends, even storming into a radio station with a shotgun. One wild night in 1988, he burst into an insurance office accusing them of stealing his toilet. When police arrived, he sped off, leading a high-speed chase that ended only after officers shot out his tires. He served 15 months in prison, and when he finally walked out, he flashed his signature grin to reporters, "I'm still Mr. Dynamite." But behind the swagger were stories buried in silence. A dancer's lost letter accusing him of rape, a nurse's memory of his wife arriving bruised but blaming the stairs. In his final years, Brown created a foundation to help Black children, perhaps trying to balance the scales of a turbulent life. Yet for many, the memory of his music is forever shadowed by the pain he caused. James Brown taught the world how to move, but also reminded us that even legends can leave scars. Michael Jackson, the angel of music with hands forever questioned. No one ever moonwalked like Michael. Yet no one ever stumbled so tragically through the shadows of fame. When the first child abuse allegations surfaced in 1993, the world froze. It couldn't believe. It didn't want to believe. But soon came the settlements. First one, then another, and whispers began to drown the music. At Neverland, his housekeeper testified to strange scenes. Michael sleeping beside young boys, rooms filled with secrets no one dared to speak of. In 2003, investigators uncovered a hidden chamber stacked with children's underwear and explicit comics. His lawyers called it a collection. The FBI watched for years, but no conclusive proof ever emerged. Michael's heart stopped in 2009, silenced by a fatal drug overdose. Yet even in death, the accusations didn't die. The children are now adults, still searching for words to define what they lived through. "I don't know if I was abused or loved," one confessed. That's the most terrifying part. Michael Jackson remains one of the greatest icons to ever grace a stage, a man both adored and condemned. And his story lingers, like a haunting melody asking one unanswerable question. How do you love an angel when their wings are stained with doubt? No one is born tainted. Many who hurt others were once broken themselves. If we truly love the music, maybe the best tribute we can give is understanding, not judgment. Thank you for listening to these difficult truths. If you believe a person's past shouldn't define their entire story, leave a comment, like, and share this video to spread compassion over condemnation.